Today I have a story to tell you. It's a story that involves snow, whiskey, tartan, and some learnings about the design process. Are you ready? The Scottish Tourism Board Visit Scotland sent me on a trip to the Highlands recently. It was a lot of fun, it was very beautiful. They wanted to show me an authentic piece of Scottish life and design, and now I want to show you some snippets of my trip and what I learned there through a design case study. My lovely host for the trip was Clare Campbell, and well, you know what, I'll let her introduce herself through this clip that we filmed in her studio. Clare, tell us what you do. Like, how do you introduce yourself to people, yourself and your business?
Okay, so I introduce myself as being a disruptive designer within the world of tartan.
There we go.
So it's really, for me, it's about focusing in an area that I'm really, really passionate about, but also thinking about the future and how we can take something that's so famous for Scotland, but how we can actually take a 200-year stereotype and redesign it.
Clare runs Prickly Thistle, which is a design studio that creates bespoke tartan designs for clients. And I don't know about you, but tartan is just one of those things that I had never given a second thought to the design process of before. It always kind of just existed. But that's exactly why it was so fascinating to spend a weekend with Clare and learn about her process for designing tartan and her approach for giving a modern take on tradition.
I mean, for me, I see tartan as one of the most kind of ancient forms of identity, and I think that's become sort of, everyone's aware of that, whether they think of it consciously or subconsciously. Yeah. So when they see somebody, at this point in time, we're most famous for kilts. So somebody will see somebody in a kilt, they're at a wedding, they're at a rugby match, they're anywhere around the world, and they go, oh, which clan do you belong to? But then you take it right into the modern context, and for me, it's actually, we don't have to stop at the clan system, and it's all about actually looking back. It's thinking about every day, or every person and every business, anything that has a personality has a story.
Yeah.
And the most amazing thing I find about a tartan is actually you can take any story, of any length or any, random aspect, and turn it into cloth just by picking out those key elements of inspiration that give you colours. And then the other key elements of inspiration are the things that give you numbers. And you start to kind of blend them together, you order them in such a way that it can read like a book, and you just take somebody's story and you just turn it into design.
Clare took me for a tour of Johnston's at Elgin, which is a wool mill that creates beautiful fabrics and garments, and they actually make a lot of the scarves and things for Burberry and Hermes, which is pretty exciting. I got to see the process from start to finish of how fabric is woven and how tartan cloth comes to life. And then we went to visit one of Clare's clients, Tartan, which is a Scotch whisky distillery. I love whisky, so it was fun to get a tour and see how it's made, and of course do a little tasting afterwards. But it was also fun to see the tartan decor hanging in their showroom and to know that Clare, who was with me, had designed it. Now, something that I say a lot, because it's true, is that design is not just about making things look pretty. Design has purpose and it has meaning. And that's why I love the way Clare talked about her approach to tartan design. Like she said, when she chooses colours, she's taking inspiration from the client's story, and the number of rows and the vertical and horizontal lines come from numbers that are a part of the story. It means that every design decision has meaning behind it, and it's a really interesting way of giving yourself design constraints. So I got Clare to tell me a little bit more about the tartan design for Tartan Distillery. So tell us about this tartan.
Tartan, yes.
What was the colour inspiration and the number inspiration behind this?
So their story, they're a corporate story, so that they have a brand identity that they want to engage and share with all of their customers. That's everybody that loves their whiskey, that's everyone that loves coming to their distillery, that likes to read their story. So they came to me at a point of when they were rebranding the whole Tartan product. So It had a very distinct colourways, it had been the same for a number of years, and they had really wanted to sort of engage with a whole new audience and really sort of come out with a slightly more kind of modern, softer side to the Highlands, which is one of their key straplines. So they presented to me one of their marketing briefs, which was them going through that thought process of all of the new colours. And they also gave me a brief about the history of the distillery. and all of the key features and, you know, what people loved about Tartan. They loved that it was one of the highest distilleries in Scotland. They loved that so many people lived on site. You know, anyone that visits the distillery will drive through that little village, which is the Tartan village,
which we did yesterday.
You know, and because it's 1,000 feet above sea level, we had lots of snow yesterday.
We did have a lot of snow. We're going on a whisky tour and it's snowing.
So it's a really high distillery, and you know, and the fact that it was formed in 1897. At one point, it was the biggest producer in Scotland. You know, so it's got a really, really interesting history, and they wanted to embrace, with their modern thinking about what their brand was, they still felt that tartan was really important. So they, like me, had embraced that, you know, we can turn this around, and we respect clans, and we respect that space, but we can do more with it. You know, there's so much unwritten in terms of the future of what a tartan cloth is. So with all of that sort of brief information, the colours, I was looking at the kind of different the different maturity, the maturation processes from the 12-year-old to 14-year-old. They had distinct colours that they used for their different
And is that
brands.
the colours that we see
So this
here?
is the colours that we have in here, with the claret and the green and the sort of dark brown. This was all in their brief, which was covering the different ranges from their 14-year-old legacy range, 18-year-old, etc. I've picked up 4 colours in between because of the guide was saying yesterday about monolith mountains, but there's the sort of Speyside rim that surrounds Tartan, and within the Speyside rim, which is a high range of mountains, there's 4 Munros. So we had 4 Munros built into there. We used the 1,000 feet above sea level to give us this big band of colourways. 1897 is reflected here in these 2 brown colours, which are these colours you'll find in any of the marketing or the packaging for Tartan. They use these 2, you know, base colours in everything. So we used that as the founding year. So in here, this cross is reflective of the 1897, 18 yarns and 16 yarns being 9 and 7, pulling in there together. These 30 here, these 30 yarns are actually each of the houses where the staff live, and all of these houses have been charged with that kind of angel share impact, this kind of alcohol vapours that are, you know, eventually consumed by a fungus that presents itself in a grey charcoal colouring. So this is their little block here. So that's
how you get the different, like the sizes of each check, you know, in a way
has a specific meaning. And it's definitely a process of working through what looks nice and what doesn't look nice.
For sure.
So we, you know, I did a number of iterations of designs, and then it was all about coming together with something that presented to them that they would have a sense of pride of wearing it. They would be showing it to their customers in their visitor centre. They'd incorporate it in their packaging, so that it had to look right. And then obviously that extra story comes from, this is the year we were founded, this is everybody lives here, we're so proud of our Tartan team, we're so proud that we're, you know, so high above sea level, this is our signature colours coming into our new branding and things like that. So it's really sort of playing around with all of that detail and
putting them together in a way that looks nice.
And it's always, for me, it's really important to work within that boundaries, because you want to keep it kind of true from a design sense, that, you know, if you're saying you're building a design based on all of these facts, then, you know, it's working within that. So it presents challenges, but I think that's good for designers, that you actually have boundaries sometimes, because I think it encourages us to be more creative.
Definitely. I find it's the hardest thing in the world to design when there's no constraints, and when you can do whatever you want, and then it's like, well, where do I start? And you start finding constraints for yourself and putting them in place. So it makes total sense.
Building that would have been used for well over 100 years of farming.
And it's where you want to build a mill.
And it's where we want to turn it into a mill, absolutely. Come views right the other side. Do you want to walk?
Let's do it. So Claire is currently running a Kickstarter campaign to... Oh, hello birds. She's launching a Kickstarter campaign to build a mill right here.
We just don't leave any textiles in Highlands at all. So for me, it's really amazing to bring back to the Highland community. And this is the building I'm hoping to turn into that big thing.
So watch this space. I want to say a huge thank you to Claire for talking to me about her process and for inviting me into her family home. It was absolutely lovely, and I found it really inspiring to hear about how she works and how she's putting this modern twist on something very traditional. And I hope that you found that inspiring too, and that there's some little pieces of her process that perhaps you can take into your own designs, like getting color inspiration from the client's backstory and, you know, building patterns out of that too. I just think it's a really cool approach, and it's something that I'm looking forward to experimenting with. Scotland is an absolutely beautiful place. I loved the whiskey, I loved the snow and the scenery and the restaurants that I ate at, the hotels that I stayed in. It was a lovely trip. So thank you very much to Visit Scotland for sending me on it and giving me this opportunity to share this interesting piece of design process with you. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!